CNBC's Jane Wells live in Los Angeles with how the 360's problems are heating up, literally.
This all came together in this horrific perfect storm.
Some faulty Xbox 360s are literally melting down while running certain games.
It was a slow rolling thing, like really understanding how big the problem was.
It started to really be concerning, and the numbers started to.
CNBC's Jane Wells live in Los Angeles with how the 360's problems are heating up, literally.
This all came together in this horrific perfect storm.
Some faulty Xbox 360s are literally melting down while running certain games.
It was a slow rolling thing, like really understanding how big the problem was.
It started to really be concerning, and the numbers started to grow.
I had a sick feeling in my stomach.
Microsoft hasn't specified the cause, but users say the console's cooling system just can't take the heat of a lot of Plague.
We were just having failure after failure.
The problem was huge.
Mine just crashed this holiday season.
Get one back, turn it on, didn't even work.
No! Again!
People spent a lot of money on a console, and we're getting 2 and 3 of them back.
Whether they were friends, whether they were family, whether they were people on the street, it didn't matter. It was all over the place.
I was mad as
Then it became the media saying, this is a piece of hardware that has been rushed to market, and as a result, we're seeing unprecedented failure rates. It's broken.
Everything that I've worked for the last couple of years is trashed.
There's a new contender in the video game wars.
Xbox is going to be the future.
Truly the future of video games.
Xbox.
Taking over the living room.
Limitless, connected digital entertainment.
You guys never understood.
The company is going to face fierce competition.
Sniper!
It's a ticking time bomb.
Makes me very nervous to actually play this for you.
Xbox getting a major overhaul.
A bold vision for the future of gaming.
Without a doubt, the most Herculean feat of the original Xbox was that it survived. Looking at the history of the video game business, you would have given them 1,000,000 to 1 chance. So the achievement is that we made it to Xbox 360. And internally, it's fun to laugh at lots of the missteps.
You'll see Xbox will actually start up.
Like, we can laugh at the Xbox didn't turn on at the original unveil.
We can bring that video up.
But with Xbox 360, honestly, even with the benefit of time, nobody laughs at the red rings.
To understand the red rings of death, you've got to go back to the beginning and all of the work we did with the Xbox 360 to build it from the bottom up. We were absolutely focused on getting out ahead of the PS3. We needed to be seen as the start of the next generation.
The 360 was 5 to 10 times more powerful than the original Xbox. And so to achieve that level of performance, we had to push technology and solutions that didn't exist in the previous generation.
This was an incredibly hard, complicated program. The circuit board itself is a completely custom design. And we were building these chips, which was a new process at the time.
We did our own internal design instead of buying off-the-shelf silicon.
We're bringing up new hardware with software that isn't quite done yet on new test systems that we're developing in real time.
And that had a domino effect on the whole product.
The design was coming together kind of late. We were launching in November of 2005, and we did not see our first silicon from the CPU until February of 2005. It's just ridiculous.
That's 9 months before launch. That is an absurdly short time frame. The normal time frame would probably be like 2 years.
And so we're faced with finishing the design and wrapping our production lines at the same time.
We wanted to launch it worldwide so everybody had it at the same time. But that's a big challenge because you also need to have enough units to restock in retail so that the countries you do launch in aren't out of inventory.
We need to get our yields up, and so we're cranking up production.
At the highest manufacturing output, I remember hearing numbers like a console would come off the line every 4 seconds.
But as we're ramping production,
We start to see reports of these issues that were coming up. Lots of inconsistencies. Consoles would fail at test stations.
If you build 100 of these things, only 50 or 60 of them would work, which is really, really bad. Like a real robust yield rate would have been 90, 95.
This was the fog of war that we had to see through, and that was, is there something wrong with the design of the product, or are we testing it incorrectly?
Because we were trying to ship in high volume, there wasn't much time to think about it because there was so much to be done. One way of dealing with the failed consoles was to put them into these nice boxes and stack them so that you would get back to them at some future point in time. In a way, we were kicking the can down the road a little bit.
We are developing what we call a bone pile. At the height, we created a bone pile that was over 600,000 units deep. And so it's just like the Lucille Ball episode where the chocolates are coming off the conveyor belt, and they're coming off so fast that they can't do anything with them. That's exactly what was going on.
The thing about building consoles is Christmas doesn't change. So your schedule is paramount, and there's just so much pressure to get it done by November.
After a hectic lead up to production and months of intense troubleshooting, engineers finally managed to solve the technical issues that had plagued the 360. As consoles started to pass QC, the team was finally able to chip away at the bone pile in an effort to meet the demand, which, at the time of launch, was ravenous.
So here is ready for Xbox 360.
Xbox 360.
When the Xbox 360 launched, there was a palpable excitement for this console.
The Xbox 360 finally got out of your dreams and into your car.
Microsoft had their fingers firmly on the pulse of what gamers were expecting, and they clearly had a vision of what gaming would be for the future.
We got in with something that was unique and revolutionary, gorgeous design, the concave elements of the 360.
It really felt, in some ways, that Xbox had actually just arrived.
This new world of online, this new world of social engagement, this new world of building communities.
A really cool feature where there were 4 green lights around the Xbox emblem.
Each of those lights corresponded to a specific controller, and so that's how you knew what player you were in the game.
We also used the ring to tell people when there were issues.
It's like the check engine light on your car.
And this is what we called a core digital error. And this was an indicator of
whenever we had new game launches or new system up
on and how to fix them.
Whenever we had new game launches or new system updates, I would be out meeting with the top games journalists, showing them all the new stuff. And I'm trying to sell them on the future, and they're like, dude, my console's not working, like it's broken.
For those who have experienced the flashing red lights, what causes this exactly?
That's kind of part of the problem, Kevin. Microsoft has been very vague about the specific causes. They won't cite any specifics. They won't say exactly why.
We didn't have all the answers at that time.
We were trying to figure this out. Do we have a heat problem? Is the solder in key components in the motherboard, is it cracking up and drying out and we're losing that connection? We just couldn't figure it out.
It's a long process. You had to test it at the board level, you had to test it at the system level, and then you had to test it in a rack level. And we had, almost 1 million of them sitting in our bone pile.
We'd fix the ones in the bone pile, we'd send it back out to the customer, and it turns out that wasn't the problem, and it would break again.
And I'm saying, man, this is not going to end.
After the 3rd or the 4th issue that we ran into, I remember thinking, hey, maybe we're in over our heads.
And we got to the point where we said, we're not figuring this out fast enough. We made the call to shut down production.
We went line down at the factory. We wanted to figure out how to solve it before we built any more units to go to customers.
It stretched every bit of our imaginations to try to figure out exactly what was going on and how to fix the problem.
This went on for months.
These were the darkest days of my career.
Are people going to now go out and buy PlayStation or Nintendo? Are they going to leave us as a brand?
Every day you weren't gaming was a bad day for you. You trusted us and you'd invested this money in us and we let you down.
Not gonna work.
This was an incredibly trying time. People use phrases like you figure out what people are made of. Having gone through it, I can actually say that happens. It's a thing. It isn't just a phrase.
Todd had to manage the very complex process of what we call root causing until we knew what was going on.
2006, 2007, I dedicated a lot of my life to this Xbox in order to fix this problem.
Breakthrough came when we understood that the connections that were being broken were not located on the motherboard, but they're actually located inside the components. The problem was a connection was breaking. The reason it was breaking was thermal, but it wasn't because of the peak temperature. It was because when the unit would get hot and then cold, hot and then cold, every time it did that, it would stress the connection.
All these people love playing video games, and so they would turn this thing on and off, and when it would turn on and off, you get all sorts of stresses.
And just like when you bend something too many times till it finally breaks, that's what was happening.
Once we figured it out, how in the heck are we going to fix this?
Peter Moore and the executive team faced a big decision about trying to fix this with all these boxes that were out there in the wild.
This was something that could tarnish the brand. They needed to do not just something, they needed to do the